just calling to say I
We always look for a little bit of elevation change in our racetracks, and Laguna Seca is going to give us just that. Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be and wherever you may be watching this from. We'd like to thank you for joining us here tonight. It's round 4 of the Simrigs Sprint Series, of course, from Laguna Seca, and it's going to be a little different here tonight. It is a super sprint, so 2 races on the menu for today, 20 minutes, then 40 minutes. Of course, AP has already gotten their races done, but you gotta save the best for last, and that is going to be us. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Amon, and I want to welcome you back to another broadcast here. I've been looking forward to this race circuit. I personally enjoy driving on. Not my all-time favorite, but definitely, I'd say, at the very least, top 5, top 10. We've got plenty of action coming your way. But of course, before we can even get into that, we gotta take a look at last week's highlights at Donington Park. Bit of a greasy track. Certainly mixed things up in qualifying as drivers were getting out there trying to get grips with anything that they could find. The early stages, of course, of the qualifying session were a little bit tricky. Anything less than optimal is going to make your life a little bit difficult, and these drivers were certainly finding that out. As times were all over the place, all throughout. Of course, Clifford being the first one out, as he normally is in qualifying. So no different, but the big story from last week's race, this man right here in the 732, Ali Khairuddin from Malaysia, hopping on a flight over the North American Sprint. Makes sense, though, for Donington Park. There is that little airfield nearby, and of course the devs put a little airplane that flies overhead. But very decorated in the AP region and looking to make a splash here in North America. It was going to be a little tricky, though. A lot of competition here in this region, but nothing that Khairuddin couldn't handle, but plenty to show up for. It didn't take long for us to get too many spins. Kenneth Portis just a little bit too much on the rear end of his Honda into turn number 1. Thankfully off to the side, out of harm's way. It wasn't just him, though. Frizza in the Ferrari having some trouble coming out of the S's, sliding it just a little bit wide onto the grass. Not much he could have done there. And right into the wall, some damage. He would go back to the pits to try again. And Bandera, another such driver. And of course, it's back here at turn number 1. He gets a little bit of a wiggle there. Tries to correct it, does, but the car just snaps another way. He went off on the grass. Had to take another stab at his lap next time around. But plenty of spins coming through here. I believe this was one of our newer drivers in the McLaren. Just coming up and over and into the wall. It's sort of a tricky, it's sort of the start of Sector 2. But once the sun was out and the racing lines were being cleared away, we were starting to see some more of those more consistent times coming out. Clifford being one such driver, of course. He's looking to get back into the swing of things. He's currently 3rd in the championship. He's 21 points behind Wilson and 84 behind Loverink. He's trying to emulate the success he had at Misano. It's not going to be easy, though. Loverink not really one to let a win go away unless he's spinning, or by some weird miracle when it comes to the reverse grid order. And, of course, speaking of Loverink, he is currently leading the championship, 375 points. He's been on a bit of a roll, and while he hasn't won every race this season, the drivers behind in the standings have certainly given him enough of a cushion to extend his lead passively. So going into Donington, he was certainly trying to make up for that. He would take pole position, though, by the end of qualifying here. Esports driver from John Lacey. Whenever you got a driver like that on your grid, you know you're going to be in for a fun time. But we move into the race. It wasn't at the grid. Plenty of really nice liveries to look at. Race start always going to be the calmest. Portis here lined up 5th on the grid behind Khairuddin. He was going into this race hoping for the best, as everyone does. But plenty of time here on the parade lap to just get yourself sorted, figure out what the play is going to be, what the sort of strategies look like. And of course, being Donington Park, being in Britain, you never know what you're really going to get. We had, like I said, the greasy conditions of qualifying, and the race start would kick off. Of course, Loverink going to be leading the way, just that slow crawl up to the line. But once we get racing, Loverink is going to do what he does best, put his foot to the floor and pull away from the pack. The race has commenced now behind Spangler. 2nd place. He's going to be the first one to lose out on this. He just runs it wide into turn 1. There isn't enough runoff, and he's going to lose 1, 2, and 3 positions there, with Khairuddin slipping on by 3 spots just off of turn 1. And you can see Loverink already starting to extend the lead, but there was trouble further back for Sanchez, one of our regulars here in North America, coming down the S's right behind fellow McLaren of Spangler, just right onto the grass, spins at 90 degrees to the right. Thankfully was able to avoid anybody else getting picked up in that. He struggled to get his McLaren righted. He had a lot of work to do, though, for that race. But outside of that, everybody else pretty calm and steady as we headed through the chicane. Nice single-file racing. But Sanchez, despite the spin, wouldn't have to wait too long as he catches up to Stapleton. throwing it on the inside into lap 1. They're going to go side by side, but the Ferrari, as we start heading down towards turn 2, just has to back out, doesn't want to fight it, realizes he's better off just letting that one go. But it wasn't too long before the clouds came in. Rain on the radar, of course. It was just a case of when it was going to happen, and it was sooner rather than later. We get some great action, though, between Kyrudin, Portis, and Wilson. Kyrudin with a little bit of room on the inside. There was some contact going into the corner, but the Porsche on exit gets the job done. And as we head into that final corner, Portis has to defend on the inside, but he's trying to fight back. Doesn't happen, though. But as we get towards that, the rain starts coming down. So now the strategies get mixed up a little bit. And it wouldn't take long because Loverink would be the first driver to pit very early on. Wanted to get those wets on as soon. And that triggers everybody else pretty much just to come in. It seemed to be about half the grid coming in for wet tires. The other half deciding that they were better off staying on slicks, waiting out the rainstorm. But once everybody got sorted, we would see some of the consequences of drivers not taking the wet tires when they did land them with Bandera behind, just onto the grass. He'll spin it out wide, a little bit of a tap on the rear, not going to damage the car too much. He was able to carry on. But another such driver who was feeling the struggles of the slicks, Portis, with Loverink. Loverink had been catching up slowly but surely over the course of many, many laps of just because of going for that first pit stop, but some contact there for him. Portis having to be stuck high and dry on the outside in these wet conditions. Loverink would go down the inside, and Spangler would follow. So Portis, another such driver, losing 2 positions in a corner, and Pocket just running wide at the final turn. Also struggling to find grip on the slick tires. But it wouldn't take long. The sun would come out. The wet weather racing would get the weight off of these drivers, and the track would slowly start to clear. Now, in all of this, Clifford stayed out the longest on slick tires, and it was working very well for him. But of course, when the track is still wet and you don't have a way to clear all of that that water, well, you get a guy like Loverink who catches up to you. It was just coming lap after lap after lap. And of course, Spangler again, sticking with the Audi. To look to see where he can maybe gain a little bit of time onto the front straight, though. You're going to see just how far back Clifford has to break into turns, especially with the front straight here. Much, much earlier. Loverink knows it. Spangler knows it. They're going to just take that bit of land on the inside, swoop on through. Clifford losing another couple spots. But moving forward, we would see Wilson overtaking Rasco here towards the exit of the S. You can see all the spray being kicked up. Rasco was really struggling to keep his car pointed in the right direction. He had a little bit of oversteer in turn 1, just enough to give Wilson a chance to catch up. But we'll see another angle from inside of Rasco's car. So there's that little bit of oversteer on entry. It works in his favor on exit. But the McLaren just not set up all too properly to deal with these wet conditions, and you're going to see the second little bit of oversteer just completely missing the apex and down the inside. Wilson goes onto the grass, goes Rasco, and the Pokemon McLaren goes through, no problems there. Now Portis with Fernandez later on in the race. The clouds started to come back and some more rain started to threaten the circuit. But Portis was pushing hard at this point, trying to gain back what he could, and lost positions. Starts looking to the inside, fades to the outside, on the brakes early, then back off the brakes, and on it again. That'll shoot Fernandez a little bit wide, and the Honda finds a bit of opening, sends it on the inside and out of turn 1, and before we even get to the S's, finds an extra spot. But lo and behold, once all was said and done, Loverink would come home to win his second race of the season. And just behind him, that's Bandera. He would finish 10th, and Pocket behind that is going to be 14th. But the very exciting part comes not too long later, as Frizza and Portis, with a little bit of help from, I guess, lack of netcode or some weird packet loss or something, found themselves in a drag race to the finish line. And Portis, you're going to see just how close it is at the line. 7 thousandths of a second separated these two by the checkered flag. But the final results, Loverank, Wilson, Spangler, Rasco, Kyrudin, Friza, Portis, Fernandez, Clifford, and Bandera are your top 10. Everyone else filed on through. And if you're curious about the standings, Loverank leads it 375 points, like I said earlier. Wilson's in second with 312. He's 63 points off of your championship leader. And right now, Loverank here in free practice is 6th overall, probably sandbagging as he does. And then Clifford, you just saw him enter or exit the front of shot as we have 2 people in the background having some problems. He is third, 291 points. He's 84 behind Loverank, but only 21 behind Wilson. Then we get a nice little bit of easy math here. Portis 271, that's 20 behind Clifford, and Rasco's 251, another 20 points behind Portis. And then Friza 226, 21 points behind Rasco. Lanham behind the other L driver of Landry. This time the gap's 23 points. Or sorry, Landry behind Friza with 224 to Friza's 226. 2 points. Right now, Friza is in a pretty good spot as he is ahead of Landry. A couple points here in free practice, but of course that's not going to matter until we actually get to the race. Then Lanham is 201, 23 points behind Landry. Fernandez is the first driver to dip out of the 200-point range. He's got 170, only 31 behind Lanham, and then Hernandez 163. So 7 points is what separates him from 9th place. And if you're wondering how the standings look across the 4 classifications, the pros, of course, Loverank's going to lead it ahead of Wilson and Clifford. Your top 3 overall is your top 3 in pro. For the silver class, it is Friza, Lanham, and Bandera. For the Pro-Ams, it is Fernandez, Hernandez, and Lemaire. Lemaire is currently 15th overall with 111 points, as there goes Pocket on the exit there, just under the Cooper Tires banner. And then for the amateur class, Migliori, Stapleton, and Waters. Now, Migliori wasn't at last week's race. Waters and Stapleton were, or no, Stapleton I think was. So he was able to gain some much-needed points to get his championship going. That's first spot for amateur class, still very much up for grabs. A lot of these classification crowns are still very close. The only difference, of course, being the pros, with Loverank having a 63-point lead. That's less than half a race win. 150 points is on top for anybody who is able to win a race, but of course in situations like this where we do have a super sprint, 2 races, 75 points each. So Loverank, should things go sideways and he somehow leaves the server, he'll be able to gain 0 points, and if Wilson wins the first race, he'll take the lead, and if he wins the second one, he'll gain even more. But unfortunately for him, well, Loverank is here. No, he's not. He's actually left. No, he's not. He's up at the top. My apologies. A 122.28 for the 52 Audi. He has just over a 10th and a half over Jonathan Clifford here in free practice. Portis lining up 3rd right now. With Friza Force, Wilson out on track, still trying to find some extra time at 23.02. He's the first driver out of the 122 range. Landry's 6th with Rasco in 7th. Keogh missing another race, but back here at Laguna Seca. Lanham and Bandera around at that top 10. Not really seeing any new names. Hasser's back, Migliori as well. Patrick Nelson seems to be having some problems there, missing last week's race, but he's ready for Laguna Seca. Waters was there last week. I always forget what Waters drives. He was there last week. So Waters and Stapleton making up some time, or making up some places actually on Migliori, but, well, the number 12 is back. So he's got some defense to do right now. Sanchez not setting a time. Same with Nathan Mercado. But we should be seeing him picking up some extra time here. Just getting towards the end of free practice. Of course, not really indicative of your pace. Now, tonight's going to be a little bit different. I know normally when we do these super sprints, you have that first race of, you know, the regular grid, and then you get into that second qualifier, reverse grid, everything else. But for this week, we're not doing that. We're having your regular qualifying grid for race 1, 15 minutes. And then we're doing the same thing for race 2, but giving them less time, only 8 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly anybody can find space. As for Kato, does not put in a time, 1:36. Hopefully that doesn't continue. Rasco trying to get one more final lap in. Right on board with him, as he is having problems, and off he goes. Of course, right as we put the camera on him, he was pushing. He wanted to find some extra time. But Clifford's going to be first one out, almost getting swamped by Keo and Fortis, and I believe that is Landry. So all 4 of these drivers getting out at the exact same time, and Clifford, of course, is going to be the first one to do it. As is tradition, looks like Keo's trying to get ahead of him through turns 1 and 2. Don't know if that's going to work. No, he's not going to do it. Clifford's going to be out. So we'll see what the 999 can do. Setting these first laps is actually going to be 12 minutes, not 15. Either way, still not a lot of time in qualifying. So Clifford, Landry, Portis, and Keo. The first one's out. Track is green. It was fast, so we should be getting some much better times. Or, yeah, much better times as things carry on. But can't say I'm all too surprised that Clifford's the first one out. He is pretty much every week, so at least he's consistent. But through the corkscrew, very famous part of the circuit. It's one of those things that doesn't look like it's that tall until you actually do it, and then you realize, oh, this is a pretty significant drop. So much like my mental well-being, probably explains why I like the circuit a little too much sometimes. But Clifford's got no problems with it. We'll ride on board with the 999. Pick up the right camera. There we go. Out of turn, the final turn, and onto the power. Long straight to work with. Can build up quite a lot of momentum as you head down to turn 1. And I gotta say, the GT3 is pretty easy to do. Right at the 3 board, fire down the gears, clip the apex once, clip it again. Watch anybody exiting pit lane as you get around. You're going to really run it forward, almost to the 1 board. Clifford, I think, got it just a little bit incorrectly. Had to release. Speaking of releasing, just a little bit off the throttle. And right back on it. Now you start getting towards the fun part of Laguna Seca. The left-hander's going to set you up. The cake coming up as well. As much on exit as you dare. See, there's just a little bit of camber on that turn. You can really sometimes throw your car into it. You'll see it a lot with the guys who run IndyCar. You'll, of course, see it in other drivers here in GT3s. And now the corkscrew. Important to get your brake zone just right. And Clifford is going to run it outside of track limits. That will destroy his lap. And validate it. And then the turn after. I can never get this one right no matter what I try. This one, too, is a little tricky. Especially if you don't have those markers up. Everything is kind of blind. But into the final turn, just a little bit by the 2. And Clifford's going to run this one out. Try to use all the space you can on the exit. And as you get to the line, Clifford's going to set a 1:23.96. Didn't count, though. Portis, drawing first blood, 23:48. Keo also setting a time. Oh, Clifford actually did set a time. Okay, that's strange. I thought he was outside of track limits. Landry, 23:66. So nobody has gone into the 22s just yet. Eduardo Sanchez, we saw his recovery race last week, and he's back in full force today. 6th overall is Fernandez, just goes ahead of him with that 1:24.14. So a lot of pretty sizable gaps here at the start. Passer is in 8th, Migliori going down to 10th. And Brian Rasco deciding that he's ready to play as he goes 2nd with a 23.6 flat. We're still waiting on Lovering, though. He hasn't done anything. Pocket as well, another such driver. Although he is just getting to the start-finish line now, so we'll see where the 7:13 goes. Does a 25.67. That'll put him in 10th. Wilson coming out of the pits right now. There's the Lamborghini of Waters. He's down in 13th. Not the best lap for him. Wilson's going to park it, let everyone drive by. Lanham is going to go to 9th. 24.57. There's the BMW of Hernandez starting another lap, and I believe that is the Ferrari of Stapleton going by. But just under 7.5 to go here, qualifying for race number 1. And Clifford has reclaimed top spot, 22.73, and as I say that, Lovering responds, 22.51. How low can they go? We saw some pretty good times in AP. Hopefully North America can hold up. And surprisingly also, I want to mention this, we saw the new Chevy get played with in Asia Pacific. I'm surprised we don't see that in North America. Or sorry, the Fords, not the Chevy, the Ford. Oh god, I'm gonna get crucified for that one. We saw the Ford get brought out for Asia Pacific. Haven't seen it in North America. Big surprise there. Let's look and see on Scott Waters. Never mind, I was about to say he's on an improvement, but he's completely decided against that. He was a few tenths up. That wouldn't have given him any extra advantage, but it would have at least given him a buffer. Hernandez goes up into P14. So he's starting to feel the track a little bit, starting to find those extra gaps, extra little bits of space, and perhaps going to do a little racing here with Waters. No, he's going to back out of that one. Keogh into 3rd. Look at the gap for first, 8 thousandths of a second. 1,000th slower than the finish from last week's race. Lovering still with that 51.2. Clifford, oh, right behind him. This is going to be interesting to see how these two are able to drop their laps. Portis coming out of the pits as well. But again, 8 thousandths. The 22.52 for Clifford. How do they work this out? I feel like Clifford's going to try what he can to, I don't want to say truly follow, but at the very least, try to figure out where Lovering's gaining time. Maybe a bit of scouting for the race ahead. Because he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to keep that gap to Lovering close. Keep in mind, Clifford at 291 points. 3rd overall. He is 84 points off of 1st position. Luckily for him, Wilson hasn't set a time yet. We'll see where he ends up. And as I say that, Wilson shoots straight to 3rd. 22.80. So it looks like your top 6, the only drivers in the 22s, Portis is 5 thousandths within that barrier, but it counts. So your top 6 separated by less than half a second. Everyone else still searching for time where they can. Fernandez being one of them. He's out of the final corner. He's got some extra pace under his McLaren. He's going to cross the line. Goes up to 9th. Bandera gets pushed to 10th. Lanham down another spot as well. Lanham, his last lap was his best at 23.76. And it looks like everybody else either even slightly behind or on an out lap. Bandera, more setup adjustments. We're seeing quite a few setup adjustments here in quali rather. Drivers trying to eke out every little bit of time they can. We have Craig Pocket, Lucas Lemaire. Mixed up my drivers, I apologize for that. But Lucas Lemaire, 14th right now. And he's going to cross the line just ahead of him, and he'll go up to 12th around Hasser and Sanchez. Pocket going into 15th position. New livery this week. I got to say, I like it. For Homebrew, I see some of the witchy vibes we got going with him. Just with the colors. Or maybe that's him on the side of it. I don't know. It could be. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know what anybody here looks like besides Clifford, I think. That's the only driver I know on the screen. I actually know what he looks like because he streams ACC for like 10 hours a day, so good on him. Pocket up into 15th. Check around. Fernandez coming out of the pits now. He's made some more setup adjustments. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of these. Love Rank going to be starting another flying lap. Let's check and see what the 52 can do. The king of the push has come around again to grace us with what it means to be one of the best in North America. Clifford ahead of him. So it looks like Loverink kind of dipped back a little bit. Both Clifford and Loverink even. Portis there in the Honda, he is 6th, is not improving. He is even with his personal best. Oh, Loverink, little bit of a twitch. But that shouldn't have dropped him back all too much. You can just see how much he is going into the corner, almost spinning out. Catches it, but that lap's going to be destroyed. That lap's done. I don't think he can use that. Even if he's kept it within the lines, he is still losing out on time, but the Delta says otherwise. Delta says he's fine. So we'll see exactly how much he lost. Clifford's lost some time. He's gone into the pits. Clifford's done with that lap. He realizes he's letting Loverink through. Oh, this might be a very good thing. Maybe use the 52 for a slipstream if possible. But this is going to be the last lap for both of these drivers. They're going to have to make it work as best they can. We're right on board with Clifford into turn 1. It'll give us a chance to see the Audi of Loverink ahead, and just beyond that, the Ferrari of Lemaire. Lemaire in 13th still, hasn't improved. But looking at the Deltas for your top 2, they're hovering around a 10th. They can't really seem to gain or lose. The problem is they're going to be gaining on Lemaire soon enough. Lemaire is on an outlap. I don't think he's going to have time, though, to get back. So maybe he'll donate a bit of a slipstream. Oh, Clifford. That was a little sloppy. He's lost some time. We'll see how it is. There's Portis. Portis is done. His quality's over. Clifford's quality's over. He cannot handle the corkscrew going in to the braking zone. So that leaves Loverink alone to improve the pole position time. Still a 22:51. He's found a 10th. Is it gonna work on the exit? He's pushing up to the line. Will he go even faster? No, he doesn't. A 22:46. But he went wide somewhere. So he is not going to be able to put that lap in. Hernandez, big slide there for the BMW. Out of the bottom of the corkscrew. He was improving, but I don't think it's going to matter at this point. 16 for the 888. But he's found more time. Can he gain some positions here? He could just step around pocket for 15th. 24:35. Good qualifier for him. Scott Waters, the 67 Lamborghini, currently sits 20th with a 29:102 as his personal best. Sanchez there behind him in the McLaren. He is sitting right now in 11th. And he is going to go into the pit lanes. His lap's done. He is a second behind himself. There's no point in carrying on. But Waters, he's going to need a lot of time to get around Stapleton, but I don't think it's going to do much of anything. He'll cross the line. Doesn't improve his time. Still 6.5 seconds behind. 19th position. But ladies and gentlemen, the first of 2 races coming up here at Laguna Seca, both of which are going to be qualified the same way and raced the same way. 20 now, 40 later. Come on, there we go. And of course, we're going to do the grid walk. You guys know the grid walk. Ignore the... I know what I'm doing. There we go. I always forget to reset it, but we'll get a good look at the drivers before we get onto circuit. And I'm proud to announce that every livery loaded Thank you to Glenn Germain for the livery sync tool, and thank you to everybody, of course, for getting their liveries submitted. And Loverink personally hand-delivering his to me, because it was not going through on the livery sync, but that's okay. As long as we have it, we get to see, because we just saw the all-black Audi. But he's got the proper livery on, same as last season. It's just a different car, but let's run through the order. It's Loverink and Clifford separated 8 thousandths of a second. You wonder if the race is going to end in the same fashion, or maybe a little bit farther. Landry and Wilson will be 3rd and 4th. Keogh rounds out your top 5. Portis just missing out there. He's 6th position. Frizza and Rasco are going to be on the 4th row of the grid. And then Lanham and Fernandez will round out your top 10. Great qualifyings from them. Sanchez a little farther down than he would like in 11th position. The Mexican driver, though, will lead ahead of Bandera, who's in 12th. Lucas Lemaire, we saw him try to get a little bit of extra time. One of the drivers trying to get extra time at the end. Wasn't going to happen. He'll be 13th with Hasser to keep him company there on 14th. And then it's going to be Hernandez and Pocket 15th and 16th for this first race. Craig Migliori and Patrick Nelson will be 17th and 18th. That's will be the 9th row of the grid. And the 10th row of the grid belongs to Stapleton and Waters. And then Nathan Mercado in the 42 at the back in position 21, but 20 minutes are going to be on the clock for this first race. And while we give these drivers a bit of a chance to get themselves sorted before we start our race, shout out to Simrigs sponsoring Season 17 of the Sprint Series. Melbourne, Australia. Anything you think you could need on your sim rig, they've got you covered with wheels, pedals, shifters, bases. I think they even have some gloves in there for you. So if you're in Australia, New Zealand, you guys don't have to worry about a thing, much like many of our drivers in the Sprint Series, the Asia Pacific region. But if you're like everybody else in this organization, you just don't happen to live on either of those island nations, if you send them an email, they'd be happy to do some business with you. And if you are supporting Octane Online Racing via our Patreon page, you're going to be getting an extra 5% off your purchases. So do take advantage of that. Sim racing equipment not cheap, seems to be getting a little bit more expensive every time you check, so why not save a little bit of money? I know you got that tax return sort of burning a hole in your pocket, but why not just get a little bit extra money and spend it somewhere? But thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 17 of the Sprint Series. But folks, we are on track here, and we are ready to go. Drivers out on the formation lap, single file racing, at least for right now. We'll line them up 2 by 2 once we get back around. Loverink, hello. Good look of his rear or his side mirror if you ever wondered what it looks like. But Loverink is another pole position for him. Lead ahead of Clifford again, 8 thousandths. That's a fine line between them. And that's just one lap. It could go either way by the end of the race. But with the way Loverink has propped himself up this season, last season, season before, whatever it may be, it's going to be a lot easier said than done. Clifford also has to keep Landry in check, because I am sure the BMW would not mind at all taking over his spot and maybe challenging Loverink for top step in race number 1. Bandera here, 12th position, right behind Sanchez. There's Fernandez and Lanham in front of him, just beyond that Rasco in the 135. This will be probably the most tranquil time anyone's going to go through corkscrew for a while. Not that these drivers mind, I'm sure they're actually probably quite upset that they have to go so slowly through the corkscrew. But we are now getting lined up 2 by 2. I'm sure race director is reminding drivers to close up the gaps, and I will too, not like they can hear me. But we'll get ready for this first race here very shortly. Loverink on the pole once again. 20 minutes to go, so we're probably going to be seeing quite a lot of desperate moves, but maybe it'll be a bit more subdued into race number 2. But ladies and gentlemen, here we go. It's green, green, green here at Laguna Seca for race number 1. It's a great start. Loverink and Clifford, even for them, but Landry got a bit of a jump there. I don't think he jumped the start, but he gained enough ground. Could be looking on the inside of Clifford into turn number 1. Everybody else filing through side by side. A lot of 3 wide in the background. Migliori going into the side of, I believe that was Nelson. That'll send him a little bit wide to the inside. Hasser, the overtake on, I believe that was Lemaire, but this race already off without many issues. Patrick Nelson, yeah, he lost out big there in the start. He is way down the grid, and we see more problems in the background, as that is, I believe, Fernandez into the side of Lanham. This is going to be 3 wide as we head into the kink. It will be a huge send from Lanham around the outside. No fear from the number 8. And he'll take over 9th position. Fernandez tries to find an answer into the corkscrew. Isn't going to happen. Down we go. But what a move that was from Lanham. Had the grip, had the speed, took a chance, made it work. 9th is his. Fernandez falls down. Hasser's in 11th. Bandera's just behind. A lot of single file here. But we're already starting to see some gaps. Oh, Frizza's weak off the exit. Bandera, excuse me, Rasco could be taking advantage of this. He's on the inside into turn number 1. Frizza's going to give it everything he can. Tries to hang it around the outside, but just going to see the side of the McLaren. It's going to put him high and wide. And Rasco, another position for him at the start. Beautiful stuff. 74, down to 8th. You wonder maybe if Lanham tries the same thing. But this gap could start to build very, very quickly if Frizza's not able to get himself back together. Rasco shaking the tail a little bit, saying, come and get me. 7th is right here. Can you do it? Oh, wide for Frizza. Does that open him up to Lanham? It might. But not yet. Oh, heavy on the brakes. Very late. Frizza almost into the back. But he'll stay clean and keep on moving. Lucas Lemaire starting to come under attack. Eduardo Sanchez, number 21 from Mexico, eyeing up the Ferrari. He's got another Ferrari ahead of him and a McLaren ahead of that. Right on board. Into the final turn here. How does he set this one up? Tries to go for a straighter exit, but Lemaire covers it off. He's going to slow the advance. So we head on to lap 2 for these guys. Just up ahead is Hasser and Bandera. Bandera's in a much better spot, though. He's got a pretty significant gap. Look at Sanchez, so late on the brakes. Different setup changes. He's going to gain all that time he lost, but the back end's just going to step out of him. Have to recover it. Does so quite nicely. And does another little wiggle. That McLaren, I don't know if the setup's maybe a little different. But he is right back at it. Hasn't given up just yet. Lemaire's going to do what he can, though. Look at Hernandez there in the BMW. He's very much in the shadows, well beyond the scope of the battle here. Oh, Lemaire doesn't get that turn right. Does not get the kink right. That opens up Sanchez on the inside, but is he brave enough to go into the corkscrew? He's not. Oh, he's very late. He's going to just spook Lemaire wide. He'll go down the inside, but he's going to have a terrible exit. Sanchez trying to go with the shoulder as much as he can without driving him wide. Look at the gap now. Clifford to Landry. It's opened up. Almost a little over a second and a half. Loverink hasn't gotten the 999 off his tail just yet. Into turn 1. Slightly different entries. Oh, onto the gravel there. You heard it. The right side of the Audi. Does Clifford sense some weakness? Is it perhaps the psychological aspect that may be getting to Loverink, knowing that Clifford isn't as much of a, I don't want to say a pushover, but compared to last season with how easily Loverink just walked away with this. I mean, granted, also in the Lamborghini for last season, Clifford slide for him. Check back in Lemaire with Sanchez still in that .2 range. Hasser losing a lot of time on Bandera. I don't know what happened there. And Sanchez again with a run out of the kink. Does he try it again into the corkscrew? Yes, he does later on the brakes. Does he get the move to stick? He absolutely does, but he spins it on the exit. He's too aggressive on the throttle. He'll do a full 360. And Lemaire just punts him aside, says, sorry, bud. Nothing to worry about there. And Hernandez also is going to win out of that. Sanchez from 13th to 14th. It was a bold move, but it wasn't going to work. He was ahead and then found himself facing the wrong direction entirely. But thankfully, just a position lost. He could grab Hernandez. Him and Lemaire were quite a bit faster than the BMW, so he should be catching up hopefully very soon. We'll keep a pin on that. Rasco, Frizza, despite the overtake, the McLaren hasn't pulled away as nicely he would have liked. Keogh's up ahead. We have a yellow flag out. I don't know. That was a 42 of Nathan Mercado. That is out of there. Not out of the corkscrew. That's the turn after. Probably running it a little bit wider, maybe a little on the inside. It's very easy to do, no matter what you're driving, whether it's GT3 or maybe you're in an Indy car, maybe you're running the MX-5s around here. It seems like no matter what's going to happen, you're going to have a lot of problems. Lanham in pocket. Hold on. I saw the deltas there. Looked like they were right on top of each other. They might have been. Lanham, 15th position, so it looks like he did get a move. The gaps right now looking a little bit close. Rasco. This has just stayed the same. This hasn't grown the way I thought it would have. Surprised Frizza sticking with him quite nicely. Track is now optimum, the best it's been. It was fast in qualifying, then green. And continuing on, these two go. 12.5 minutes to go, 20-minute race one. We'll have an 8-minute qualifier with everybody out there, so no reverse grid. And then it'll be 40 minutes, no mandatory stops anywhere. So it'll just be a lights to flag race for all of these drivers. And someone who's currently lights to flag right now, Loverank, though less than half a second to Clifford. Portis and Keogh just ahead. Similar situation to these two. And Loverank. Look at just Clifford all over the back of him right now. Clifford's getting confident. He's trying to get a straighter exit. He may have that. Does the slipstream play any part in this? It doesn't look like it. For a second, I thought Loverank was going to try to defend. He's got a different line. He missed the break point. That could have been the chance for Clifford to maybe just get the bumper in there and try to force Loverank off his line. And again, a little wide there for the Audi. The 52 really feeling the pressure right now. Starting to falter him a little bit. Landry and Wilson, different position. Pretty calm for those two. Portis dealing with Keogh, who is, well, roughly the same distance from Rasco to Frizza. So right now it's really the fight for first and second, fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth. Going down the grid, it gets quite spaced out very quickly. We're just about to be halfway through this first race. No changes for the lead. But Loverank everything he can to try and open up a gap, try to shake Clifford off. But the Charging Bull doesn't want to get the horns out of this one just yet. Better exit. Audi performance a little bit better. The Lambo could be the setup. So Loverank sets up a little bit more inside for turn one. Try to keep it pretty even on entry and exit, but Clifford goes a little wider and tries to get a straighter one. And again, the same corner. Loverig runs it wide and still holds a half-second gap. Oh, Rasco's a little loose there. Catches it. Does Frizza find a chance to capitalize? Not all too certain. Closer on the apex. He'll reel in the 135 just a little bit more. Into the kink, backs out. Frizza playing this very cautiously. The pace is roughly the same. It's about a tenth, a little bit less per lap. But it goes both ways. Rasco, I think, cutting the exit there of the corkscrew. Does Frizza find any extra speed? 2/10. The gap from him to Rasco is the same as Lovering to Clifford. That's the same as Hasser to Sanchez. I saw some big moves. Oh, that's Waters. Does Waters throw a wrench in this? Yes, he does. He shoves. He pushes the 999 a little bit wide. That's going to give Clifford so many more problems now. Not what you want to happen when you're getting around a back marker, and that has given Loverink a lot of room to work with. As Waters goes way off circuit. Now Landry's in this. Same with Wilson to some extent. Rasco and Frizza getting around the 67. Waters trying to do what he can to not be a nuisance to these two. Does not want to ruin their fight. Frizza, I think, had a little bit of a touch there on Rasco. If he didn't, then that was just the McLaren stepping out on its own, but Rasco manages it beautifully. Catches it. Absolutely no problems at all for him. He has far more hours out of the McLaren than anything else. Oh, and that is, I believe, that is Mercado. Off at the exit. He's back in the pit lane. Something's happened. Big damage for him. So he's pretty much over and done with this first race. Clifford and Landry. Gap's now 3.5. Rasco and Frizza again. Hasser and Sanchez. Hasser's going extremely defensive, but Sanchez tries to move on the inside. Spins the 921 around. A full 360 for the Ferrari. And Sanchez is going to drive off. There goes Lemaire. And I think Hernandez also gained a position. He did. And could Lemaire look for a move on the inside? No, he doesn't. Decides against it. Hasser's not going to be too pleased with that. I mean, he was about as defensive as you could have comfortably have gotten, and Sanchez with a tap on the rear, so I'm sure that will probably draw a post-race penalty. We'll report on that next time out. I don't believe we have a race next season, or next week. I'm fairly certain we have an endurance race that same week with the Italian Job 3 circuits, Monza, Misano, and Imola. Just doing a quick check of things. Yeah, we actually have quite a lot of time off until our next race. Currently it is May 16th. Our next race isn't going to be until June 13th. So we have quite a few weeks in between now and the Red Bull Ring. We haven't seen RBR in the Sprint Series, but drivers are going to be getting ready for that Monza race. It's going to be 8 hours. That'll be June 1st, so June 2nd if you're using the correct time zone and you're us. But Monza, Misano, Imola, Monza in June, Misano in July, Imola in August. I'm going to try to be at the Imola race. Absolutely love that circuit, but enough about that. Got quite a time off. A lot of preparation for Red Bull Ring. Again, one of the newer circuits that we've talked about before in the past. So plenty of time for drivers who aren't all that familiar to get with grips with it. Frizza finding some space on the inside. There's Fernandez. Well, right on board with the McLaren. He's got a great overview of this. The Ferrari gets around the McLaren. The other McLaren, the 26, sits behind. As we head into the corkscrew, late on the brakes, almost into the back there, plunging down the hill. Frizza getting it done. Different lines, you can see how it works for each driver. A lot of lifting as we head through. One of the trickier corners to get right. Fernandez on the gravel. You probably barely heard it. Left side, late on the brakes, very much missing his brake point. And Fernandez, despite being right in the thick of things, now finds himself with an equal gap to Rasco as he does to Frizza. The top 5 now separated by less than a couple of tenths. Keo has slowly been wearing Portis out. It may not be physical, but at the very least it is going to be mental. Lemaire is quite a ways ahead of Sanchez. How in the world did that happen? I don't know if Sanchez went off or what it might have been. Pocket also has gained a position. He's gone to 14th. Lanham down in 16th. So interesting how things have gone. The back of the pack's pretty quiet. At the front of the pack, a lot of noise up there. Portis being next on the chopping block, possibly. As, oh, Keo runs very wide there. So, as soon as I was back on it, it is over. Portis, a lot of breathing room. 3.5 minutes to go. This is probably where we're going to be checking in these 3 drivers. Ferrari leading to McLaren, 7-8-9. And you can see what different break points we have to work with. A lot of exit there for Frizza. And even being in the same car, Rasco and Fernandez take things a little differently into that final corner. Same into turn number 1. We'll check and see how they stitch it up. Slightly better for Fernandez there on exit. A little bit closer to the apex. Frizza walking this one away though right now. On track for 7th. And Loverink, despite Clifford getting tangled up a little bit with Waters, has absolutely destroyed the gap to the Audi as we head down. That gap, 0.3, probably 0.4. Clifford, the master of the seal, just doesn't want to give this up at all. Again, a different line. So Clifford, I think, for these sharper corners, he's running wider than Loverink to try to get that straighter exit, and Loverink goes more narrow. We'll probably see it again here as he goes across. But he's got a lot of pace there, and now they're getting close to Stapleton. So Stapleton is going to be getting blue flagged here soon enough, maybe sooner than you would expect. Of course, always a great livery. Now those blue flags are coming out. He's going to have to get out of the way. And that he does. Doesn't want to hold these 2 up. Landry will be next in line for it. It's going to happen. It's either going to be before the corkscrew or after. Loverink, a lot more defense than he's used to. You wonder if maybe he saw the Lamborghini as too strong and wanted to give someone else a shot, or if maybe he just isn't as confident as he was in the past. Oh, very weird line there. Does not get the exit, and now Clifford well and truly in the slipstream. As we head to turn 1, does Clifford go on the inside? No, but he's gonna lift a little bit. Loverink runs it wide. It is side by side on the exit, but Clifford's gonna be on the outside for the next corner. Is he brave enough to sling it around the outside? No, he's not, but maybe a little bit of a switchback. Loverink running wide. Waters off the road, trying to get out of the way, trying to avoid a repeat of last time. Good on him. But Clifford really applying the pressure, and this is the last lap. This is going to be the last chance these two have to fight for another 8, maybe 9 or 10 minutes. Loverank holding on by less than a hair's width. So much pressure from Clifford. Clifford with fastest lap as well. That's going to give him an extra 3 points here. Oh my god, Loverank is all over himself. He doesn't know what to do. This might be the time where Clifford is able to challenge. He may go for a move into the final corner. It could be a dive bomb. He might be setting up for it. No, he's not. That similar line, he might be thinking more towards that second race. He is weaving side to side. He's going to flash the lights. He is going to concede. Loverank, less than half a second. Probably going to be a little bit less without the side to side. But Clifford, what a race from him. Despite that knock from Waters, kept it going. And Fernandez looks like he's held off Bandera quite well for 8th. Landry will be 3rd, Wilson 4th, Portis 5th, Keogh and Rasco 6th and 7th respectively, and Frizza gets into the top 10. Hernandez comes home in 11th. Lemaire will be 12th. Sanchez, maybe a post-race penalty hanging over his head, 13th. How much further does that put him down? Pocket will be 14th, calmly through that final corner of his. And Migliori in 15th. Behind him is Lanham. Lanham, you guys remember getting into a bit of an altercation with Sanchez at the same exact corner some time ago, a few laps. Migliori will be 15th. Lanham will be 16th. Stapleton's back in the pits. He's 17th. Then it's Waters, Hasser, Mercado, and Nelson rounding out the 21 drivers on the grid. Now we are getting in to second qualifying. 8 minutes, no reverse grid like we've done before with other super sprint rounds this season and seasons past. But as is tradition, Clifford, first one out. You gotta respect a man who is as consistent as him. I feel like the one time if I ever bet on someone being out of the pit lane first for qualifying and I bet on Clifford, he's going to be the last one. That would be my luck. But we should be seeing a bit more scramble and a lot less time fiddling about. 8 minutes instead of 12 for this qualifying session. Thankfully, track is as good as it's going to get. And temperature surprisingly cool, 20 ambient, 21 on the surface itself. You think California this time of year, it's going to be a little bit warmer, especially as we head towards summer. But perhaps maybe the settings are leaning more towards the Australian time of year, where things get cold. And I did quotation marks around cold, because their cold is probably about my spring or my early summer. But Clifford, 8 thousandths was the gap for the first round of qualifying. We'll see if he can do it again, maybe better, maybe besting Loverank for pole position. But Loverank will expand his championship lead to Clifford. Although Clifford may have overtaken P2. If he hasn't, he could do it this race, depending on where Wilson finishes. There's the 42 of Mercado coming out of the pit lane. What a first race he had, spinning it at the bottom of the corkscrew, the back end stepping out, spinning around, slamming the wall. His race was done and dusted. I believe up ahead is Nelson. So we'll see where Clifford lays the flag down here for qualification number 2. We'll also keep an eye and see where Loverank is at. Loverank could also switch things up a little bit. Don't worry, we'll do another grid walk, as is tradition. Because we'll actually have some, well, another reason to do so. But already a little bit of traffic here for Clifford. Shouldn't be all too bad. That is Nelson getting in the way a little bit. Landry's behind him. Won't have to worry. Not Mercado, excuse me. Nelson stepping out of the way. So Clifford crosses the line, 22-25. That's your first time. Where does Landry end up? 23-49. And I think Loverink is, yep, he is on his flying lap. So we'll see where he can go. Everyone else should be getting their first laps in very shortly. A lot of drivers getting their flying lap started, actually, which is surprising. Hernandez. Right now, P3, 23.69, and then it's Lemaire with a 24.30. Bested immediately by Sanchez with a 23.71. Keogh's got a 38, but he's been messing around a little bit. Loverink, as he crosses second fastest, 22.48. Just a little bit over 2/10 slower than Clifford. But this man can improve rapidly. Portis up to third. 22.77, half a second behind the leader, but 3/10 behind Loverink. We see Hasser in 10th. Frizza goes to 5th position with that 23.05, exactly 8/10 off your pole sitter. And the rest of the time slowly starting to trickle in. Hernandez here on an improvement in 9th position. Right on board. We'll listen to the BMW a little bit. I don't think we get to hear it too much. Maybe not one of the best sounding in my opinion, but there are people who absolutely love the sound of this thing. Also going back to make some setup adjustments, possibly. Hernandez, very brave on the brakes into that final turn. He has gained a couple of tenths. Does he gain some positions, though? He does gain a couple positions. From 9th to 7th with that 23.43. Clifford not improving right now. Loverink is, though, and this could be the 21. It is a 21.94. The 52 Audi of Loverink, showing why he flies the flag of the Shawnee Esports organization and why he is just so damn good at it. Frizza, another such driver improving. Could he go into the top 3 with this lap? Yes, he does. 22.47. Just a 10th better than Portis, but he'll take it. Out of drivers yet to put a time in, Migliori starting his first flying lap right now. He's gone wide a little bit, so he has not had any valid laps. Then it's Rasco, Waters, Stapleton, Mercado, and Hernandez. Just ahead of him is Keogh, who finds himself in 3rd with that 22.43. So some very solid times. We are seeing some improvements, Sanchez being one of them. He's right now sitting in 11th position, 23.71 here. Just a minute and 48 seconds to go in Q2. And he's going to go into the top 10, almost top 5. He'll be 6th, though. 22.60. Now, when he gets back, he'll have one extra lap to try and gain even more time. Frizza, another driver who's improving right now. And actually ahead of him is Joe Bondera. We'll see where the 69 ends up. He's 11th at the moment with a 23.63.5 as his personal best for this session. And this will be his final lap. He'll go up to 8th with that one. Frizza dodging Clifford and goes 2nd, 800ths faster. Right now, Clifford is improving. Do we see him go even higher than that? Because he's got to find a load of time to hold on to pole position. He takes it provisionally with a 21.82. Slight problem. Loverink is improving as well, and he's going to have an extra lap after this. Same with Clifford. I was about to say it might be very, very close, but I think when Loverink gets back, he'll have probably about 10 seconds. Not as close as my original calculations, but you can see why I'm not a math major. Oh, Loverink, no. Loverink goes into the pit lane. I think he's done. I think he's realized he can improve. So, Clifford Is this going to be the pole position to set him up for 40 minutes for race number 2? Andrew Wilson, 9th. He was 8th. Just got moved a little bit. But he'll cross the line just barely enough time to get one more lap, and if he so chooses, 4th position is what he gets. 22-21 for his best. Bandera goes to 10th. He'll stay 10th. Frizza's going to stay 3rd. Portis is going to go 5th fastest. Then it's going to be Hasser in 15th. Now we look to see who moves and how much higher they go. Migliori, one such driver. He's got a pretty solid improvement here. This could be enough to get around Stapleton if it counts. That it does. Clifford parks it up. He's happy, satisfied with that 21.8. So that'll be his final bit of qualifying. Landry up and over into 5th around, or out to the 4th rather, around Wilson. So his best lap, moving him up a little bit. Dan Fernandez from 14th. He'll go 13th. Lemaire's out of the way for him. And I think it's just Rasco, the only driver left out on circuit who is improving, that is still on a valid lap. Could be Wilson maybe, but we'll see. Does Rasco have enough to get around Sanchez? He probably will, but around Keogh, that's the big question. From 9th, he'll stay. Misses out on an improvement. 5 thousandths of a second. And that will do it for Q2. Slightly different gaps, though. We had 8 thousandths from Clifford to Loverink, and now we are going to have a little over a 10th from Clifford to Loverink. So we'll see how this all plays out. I like how my camera didn't change. Just get a nice zoom in on Keogh there. Just take it in. Not indicative of anything, of course. But we'll take a little grid walk. Don't worry, we'll get to the front of the grid here for the second race here for Laguna Seca. I'm ready to see. We got 40 minutes on the clock and 21 drivers still ready to go. But Clifford decides that he wants to show Loverink what it means to lead, but double the race length to get it done. It's easy to do it for 20 minutes. You wonder if it's going to be as easy to do for 40 minutes. We'll have to see. Frizza's 3rd with Landry and Wilson to make it your top 5. Kenneth Portis just barely missing out. Keogh keeping it classy with the Aston Martin, same livery from last season. He's 7th. Sanchez will be 8th with Rasco in 9th and Bandera just rounding out the top 10. Lanham misses out on it. He'll be 11th though. Hernandez in the BMW with Fernandez behind in 13th. Then it's Lemaire and Hasser just on your right there. On your left, that's going to be Craig Pocket. And just on the right here is Craig Migliori. On Danique Stapleton in 18th. Patrick Nelson 19th. Scott Waters going to try to stay out of the way for this race. And Nathan Mercado in the 42 McLaren will round us out in 21st position. But 40 minutes on the clock, and we'll see who stands atop the pile at the end of it. Could be anybody. Just because you're on pole doesn't mean you're going to stay there. Hopefully you guys are ready for the second race. I know I am. And like I said, we've got a long wait between this race and the next one. There's going to be some drivers who are probably going to be very happy to have an extended amount of time to get sorted out for the Red Bull Ring. Maybe one day we'll head to the Nürburgring. I'm sure we're working that out behind the scenes, and I'm not just saying that sarcastically. I'm genuinely saying I have no idea. I'm not involved in these things. They just go, hey, here's a race, we might need commentators. It's like, oh, that sounds like my type of gig. But we are within the 30 seconds, so hopefully everybody is out, ready to go. Everybody is raring to go. They want to get this underway as soon as they can. They don't want to waste any time whatsoever. They just want to get a race going. I'm sure there's some people that are ready to get out of here, go to bed. At least for me, take a shower, then go to bed. Race 2, not that far away. Rasco here in 9th. Can he find a way around Sanchez? Loverink starting P2. I can't remember the last time Loverink started in P2 in a race. Just goes to show you how often he seems to be at the top. Not that I don't think he would complain at all. Everyone else might. Behind him is Frizza, Landry, and Wilson, top 5. 4 to 6. He just barely missed. And it's Keo. We'll check in with Bandera here in 10th. See everybody ahead of him. First place, quite close, but still very far for the 69. These guys getting as much heat and pressure in the tires as they can. Same with the brakes. Atlanta, one such driver speeding up, getting heavy on those brakes. Try to use some of that sort of heat radiating off to get the inside of his tires a bit more up to temp. I'm sure many of us have seen the little tire display on the HUD. Outside, inside, and inside of the tires. And one thing I learned recently is that little middle bar of the tire, depending on where it lines up with those two outside tire indicators, tells you if you're over or under pressure. If it's above those two lines, it'll be over pressure. If it's below, it'll be under pressure. So if you never knew that, like I didn't, there you go, a little bit of knowledge. And who's to say I can't educate people sometimes? But we are side by side for the second race of the evening. No reverse grid. Everybody was out there, and we are just getting it underway. Landry and Frizza getting an excellent jump there on Loverink, caught-napping a little bit as we head into turn number 1. Drivers trying to keep it clean, really getting on the brakes there. But now it's Clifford's turn to play getaway driver. Migliori's off at turn number 1. Down the inside, Portis onto Wilson, Sanchez, and Keo. Rasco, I think, almost getting taken out by Bandera. The BMW of Hernandez moves through Lanham. And Pocket as well starting to get into the mix there. Oh, no, that's not Pocket. But Pocket's off. That's Lemaire. Pocket's off. Lemaire, big snap there. Keeps it under control. Does Lanham go on the inside? I think he does. Does he make contact with Hernandez? No. But Sanchez is off the road, almost veering back onto the track. The inside line, Lanham's not giving this up into the corkscrew. And Hernandez just has to throw his hands up and say, I'm done, take it, I don't care. Sanchez getting a little bit argy-bargy there with Hasser. That was for 14th position, rather. Had a yellow flag out on track. I didn't quite see who that was. But already, some of these drivers very impatient, Lucas Lemaire being one of them, as he sees Fernandez in his sights. We're going on to the the second lap of this race. Lemaire looking to the outside. Ooh, off the throttle a bit. Try to shave off some speed as Fernandez goes a little bit wide. But despite that, Lemaire can't capitalize on it. We'll check up a little bit here. Clifford really starting to run away with this, faster than Loverink did. This is very surprising. Bandera with the inside line belonging to Lanham, who goes into the side and, despite spinning out, uses the sausage curb to correct himself. That's a new one. I haven't seen anybody pull that off, but this is soon becoming a 4-horse race. Bandera off at the kink. Does he keep it together? No, goes right across, hits the wall. Big bit of damage there on the left side. And Lemaire just decides to completely exit at the corkscrew. Doesn't want anything to do with that. If you want to avoid a crash, I guess that's how you do it. Very strange there. Very odd set of events. And that is going to be Hasser going into the side of Fernandez and taking himself out. Through goes Nelson. What is this second race? It's already just off the rails. Nobody knows what they're doing. Hernandez now ahead of Sanchez. This is 10th position. That will be disputed over. We'll check in with Portis, Wilson, and Keogh. The battle for 5th here in the second race. And look at the gap. You just barely saw it there. Loverink struggling to keep up with Clifford. Perhaps realizing just what the pace of the Lamborghini is. Maybe slightly regretting his choice to change cars. Oh, Sanchez. Nelson stopped. Nelson's had a huge impact. We'll go overhead. We'll see what happened. Does he get it on the gravel? He does. Just loses it. And big hit there. Right on the front end. That is going to cause a whole heap of problems. But he's actually staying out. He does not want to teleport. I think he might just take it back to the pits manually. We'll save time. But look at this gap. We'll look out the front of Lovering. You can see just how far ahead Clifford's already gotten over the course of 2-3 laps. It'll be interesting to see what happens at the next race. How these drivers prepare. I know last week with Donington, Clifford talked about how it's not one of the tracks that LFM usually runs that he's more accustomed to. So he's had to do everything sort of by himself. Not as prepared, but obviously Laguna, a more popular circuit, one that does get quite a lot of attention. As Mercado goes very wide into turn number 1, that'll bring Lemaire and Pocket through. For 16th, 17th for them. There's Craig Migliori in 15th. Does Lemaire have the pace to get around the 11? I think we'll have to just wait and see. If these two fight long enough, Migliori could be gaining a pretty significant advantage that Lemaire cannot overcome. We have Nelson in the pits, Bandera as well. Nelson with a lot of damage, Bandera not so much. I think he had a bit of an incident earlier. But Lucas Lemaire doing a pretty good job now, pulling away from Pocket. Migliori starting to get a little bit larger with each passing corner. That gap is starting to equalize both ways for the 510. 1 point, yeah, it's quite almost exactly 1.434 and then 1.462. So Lemaire is very good at spacing himself out. We'll check back in with Portis and Wilson. This is up the hill towards the corkscrew. Portis so confident in the Honda ever since the update where we started to remove ballast from all these cars. At least, or sorry, the BOP rather. Portis has been absolutely living the dream with the Honda, because he has had sort of the chains that have been placed upon it removed. So we've seen Nelson get a stop go 30 for speeding in the pit lane. Wilson sticking with them though. Last lap, a 1:23.08 for Portis and a 1:23.04 for Wilson. You can see just how much pace he's able to gain though, almost into the back there. He is really trying for this. Migliori, he's got some front damage. I wonder what happened there. But what's happened is Lemaire has absolutely just tiptoed around him. Has picked up 15th. Migliori now going to be well and truly by himself as we check on Mercado. spinning around. Almost spinning again. Let's see what happened. Oh, right on the sausage curve on the inside. Lucky to get away with that one. The lightest of touches. On the wall there, and then he'll just casually hit one of the markers, so he's not doing too hot. But it's very calm right now overall in this race. Besides this pack here of Portis, Wilson, and Keogh, Frizza isn't a part of it, but he's going to do everything he can to try and make sure that doesn't happen. And then it's Rasco behind. Keogh, let's see what he can do. This is going to be into the first turn. Oh, he looks for it. Tries to scare Wilson. That's not going to happen. And now Keogh's starting to lead a little bit of time here. Portis will pull away. These two do their thing. But that's probably been the closest Keogh has been to Wilson for a while. We'll see if he can maybe keep that going. Because that gap is 0.3 right now, compared to Portis, where it's 0.6. Rasco has really lost out on this whole thing, and I don't know if Frizza's really capitalized all as much as he could have. At the very least, he knows that him and Portis are in the same sort of predicament. And Wilson's got it even worse. And Clifford's lead right now, 1.6, which is very surprising. Huge. We'll see if it's grown here. And it has 2 seconds. I mean, if Clifford keeps this up, he could overtake Lovering by the end of the season. Just keep in mind, so far points prior to everything being sorted out. Lovering is at 375 with Clifford at 291. That's an 84-point difference. But with a win here, that could chop it down a bit, and we'll see what happens at the Red Bull Ring. That'll be 3 weeks from now, which is probably the longest gap I think we've had in a sprint season. Normally, we have about a week, usually for just a scheduled break or if it's an endurance event. But there's, oh my god, that was Waters. We'll see what happens. So this is letting Landry through before the kink. I'm assuming... Oh, he just completely misses the corner. Spins it around right in the way of everybody. Very lucky that nobody got collected in that, because that could have changed everything. These guys got lucky. I know we're in California. Las Vegas isn't the longest drive away. They're rolling 6s for all these guys. Out of the pits comes Pocket. I saw him in there earlier. I don't know if he underfueled his car or what, but coming back in at this point, very odd. Landry, nice in 3rd position. He's got Frizza to keep him company. Portis was sort of going back and forth on Wilson's gap, and he gained and he lost, and he gained again and lost again. But it seems that Landry to Frizza to Portis to Wilson to Keogh, the gaps are all roughly the same. And Fernandez here in 11th. So much quieter race. A very explosive opening has led to a rather tranquil and subdued middle section. I'm sure a lot of these guys might be a bit happier about that, because that gives them less time to really think about it. Just worry about getting the laps out and maybe work to slowly get the times chiseled down. Bandera's still in the pit. He's obviously unhappy about something that occurred earlier on. This is just very standard racing. Sanchez here in 10th. Lanham's ahead of him. 1.4 seconds. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll see if it goes down. These guys really just starting to run a pretty consistent race. There's a little bit of push there in the back from Wilson, trying to find a little bit of extra time. Don't think it'll do him all too well as he runs onto the gravel. Thankfully, doesn't spin out. Keogh there as well, and Rasco's still lurking. All it takes is one little mistake. At least with these guys, if Portis spins, or even if Lanham or Frizza spins, it's going to be a ton of spots lost. We are closing in on the halfway point. We have a yellow. The 921 of Hasser is off. That is very odd. So we'll see. Oh, just another sausage curve. Sausages are eating good today. Full pirouette. The car actually shut off, so we had to turn it back on. There's a couple of drivers go through. That was Lemaire and Waters. Waters a few laps down, or sorry, a lap down on Hasser. Lemaire on the same lap, so this was a loss of position, 12th to 13th for the 921. So we'll see if he can get back around Lemaire soon enough. A lot of stabilization right now. There is not a lot of action. These drivers biding their time. Maybe the start of the race traumatized them so much they had to just back up, because they realized that things are not going to be too fun. There's Waters out of the way for the Ferrari of, or sorry, yeah, the Ferrari. I almost said Frizza. That would have been very incorrect. That's Stapleton going through. Blue flag coming out. Stapleton in 15th right now. He's got Migliori at 9.3 seconds ahead of him. A long ways up, but not insurmountable. Oh, Lanham and Sanchez. This is getting close. This has been slowly coming together. Portis and Wilson as well. Let's look at the lap times. They were the same, and it is Wilson that has a 4/10 better lap time this go around. And then Lanham was slower on the last lap and slower still on this lap. Now it's 7/10, so Lanham was 3/10 slower the last tour of this, and now he's 7/10. Sanchez taking chunks out of the number 8. In terms of time, in terms of pace. And Portis as well feeling the heat. Keogh is slipping. Same with Rasco. So I think Frizza, Portis, and Wilson are all running relatively the same times, because those gaps have been staying right where they are. And Landry as well has been very consistent. Loverick is 2.3, surprisingly. Because when we checked in the last time, it was 2 seconds, but Clifford's only gained about 4, or almost 4/10. So that's odd. You think with the pace he was moving at, perhaps it would be a lot sooner. Or, sorry, a lot more. Sanchez, great exit there. Looks to the inside. Lanham tries to cover it off, maybe thinking back to last time. He'll go around the outside. Now we're going to be side by side. A drag race up to the start-finish line. It will be Sanchez with an advantage. It's going to be a shorter run. Sticks to the inside. Sanchez into 9th position. Nothing Lanham could have done. Could have tried to stick with it, but thought better. So eyes back to Portis. The 84 Honda in 5th position. Lap times very close. Very, very close to Wilson. Mercado's in the pit. That can't be for damage. Nope, might be another case of underfueled car. It's happened before. We've had drivers have a setup for a super sprint, and they only set it up for enough fuel for race 1, only to realize that it's not going to get them to the end of 2. So that's probably what we're seeing with Mercado. We saw Pocket as well. Portis is, we'll see what the lap time. It's going to be a 22.9 and a 22.7 for Wilson. So it's really perplexing because you see the gaps, you see the lap times, and yet he's not able to overtake. He's not able to close up. Looking at the sector times, the only sector that Portis lost out in was 2, where he was 0.3 slower. Yep, but he won in Sector 1, he was a 10th up, and then they were equal in Sector 3. I really thought we would be seeing Wilson go for a move sooner than expected. We're just about halfway through the second race. Only move we've seen was Sanchez to Lanham, and that's grown. That's a gap. That's over a second now. Pio, a 22.62 for his last lap. So does Keo close up? And where in the world's Frasco? There he is. Oh, this is going to be getting very tight with Waters. He'll get out of the way. Keo looking into 1. Doesn't find anything. Yellow's out on circuit. That was the 26 of Fernandez. Probably just lost it a bit out of the corkscrew. Maybe into it. Oh, he's got huge front end damage, yeah. Whew, passes up the pit lane, though. Thought maybe he would, but decided not to. Portis again in the toughest spot. He wants to cover what he can. Wilson, later braking point rather. Another yellow. Quite see who that was. The 67 of Waters having problems. Oh, very wide there for Wilson. I don't think that's within track limits, but he kept it pinned, so I say let him run. Last lap similar. So it looks like what's currently happening is they both just did 22.9s. So I think Wilson gains a bit and then sort of stalls. And that gives Portis a chance to leave. And then maybe Portis stalls, maybe Wilson just gets him on pace. I don't know what it is, but I think that's what we're seeing right now. And it's very odd. And Keo, another such driver who's in probably a far less ideal situation because he's sometimes gaining but mostly losing. Fernandez comes into the pits. He's going to get his McLaren fixed up. He's realized that maybe the performance is too much to ignore. So he doesn't want to keep it going if he doesn't need to. I should give Migliori a move around. Same with probably Stapleton, Hernandez, maybe Waters. I doubt Nelson, because Nelson just started a lap. Started his 13th lap, and, well, Fernandez is on 14th, so he'll miss out on that. He'll probably also lose out to Hernandez when he comes around. And another similar lap time, 23:15 for Portis, 23:11 for Wilson. So, yeah, it's a case of gain a bit, then stall, then gain minuscule amounts, stall again, let your opponent get away, and then start gaining. It's a very... There's a weird... What is it? Is it Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill eternally? It's kind of what Wilson's dealing with right now. And even Keo. There's no pressure, there's no moves, there's no, you know, weird exits. They're all just sort of running their race. Same with Frizza. Frizza's probably just been sitting there with a nice smile on his face. Isn't really worried about much of anything because he hasn't been challenged for 4th position. Clifford's built his lead up 4.5 seconds. So now the gap's building more. It was, what, just a little over 2 seconds last time around? Now it's gone up. See, almost 5 seconds. Perhaps Clifford is far more comfortable. Perhaps perhaps the Lambo's a little bit better at Laguna than the Audi. I don't have as much experience in the Audi. I tend to avoid it as best I can. I'm still slightly traumatized from seeing all the Audi tings that happened to other drivers. Now we get up to some back markers here. Stapleton. Oh, Frizza doesn't expect that. Somehow runs it a little wide, and Portis goes through. But does he stay ahead? No, he doesn't. But now it's side by side, racing up the hill towards the kink. Does Portis... Oh, he doesn't even have to worry about that. Frizza steps out. Decides better of it, and Portis wheels away, and now Wilson and Keo. Wilson having a very strange move on the inside and goes off the track, spins Frizza around. Keo goes through, and Wilson very much in the wrong for that one. Missed his brake point, tried to go way on the inside to try to slow him down as much as possible. Just went right into the side of Frizza. Frizza goes down to 6th. So he only lost the 1 position to Portis. That was all set up, of course, unintentionally. Not by Waters, but by Stapleton. Just moving at a time Frizza didn't expect. Oh, Frizza actually losing 2 positions, excuse me, not 1. Also was Keo that picked something up. So Stapleton unintentionally giving Frizza a -2 on the position counter. And he will have to let him through again, so that'll be a little awkward. Hopefully, Stapleton gets out of the way sooner rather than later, and he does in the strangest way possible. But if you're Frizza, you're probably rolling your eyes, giving a very sarcastic thank you, and then moving on. Stapleton's struggling a little bit to keep the Ferrari going in the right direction. We have lost a driver. I didn't see that was down to 22 in the pit lane. Nelson coming out of it. Pocket getting a little loose there. He's got Lemaire behind for a blue flag. Jonathan Clifford, 5.2 seconds leading this race comfortably. Migliori behind as a buffer. Not like he really needs it, but just in case. And then he also has, I believe that's Nelson ahead of him and Waters. Waters with some front end damage. 2 Lambos, and Clifford will be let through. Waters just off to the side there. Migliori as well, he'll have to let through. Will he let him through before the king? Probably just about at it. Both of them running the same route. Waters spins and hits the front again. 67. Missed timing. The let through of the blue flag, and he's going to be waiting for drivers to pass. Yeah, that's not looking pretty. That's going to be a lot of performance damage. It is enough to keep going. So probably bring himself back to pit. Sanchez, speaking of which, he's in the pit lane. Migliori is going to have to let Love ring through. This is going to eat away a little bit. Shouldn't be all too much, though. 5 seconds dead, so at least it's even. Landry's catching up 7/10 to Loverink. Lap time is better for the BMW, and now he's got a clear line of sight to the 52 Audi. That last lap quite a bit faster. You wonder how much the blue flag work of Migliori had to do with that. Maybe not much. Lanham with Rasco. Gonna use Stapleton as a buffer, maybe. Probably not, though, as I think Stapleton ran it way wide. Just didn't want to be the cork there. Landry not gaining a lot of time here. He was 7/10, now it's half a second. Down they go again and again. 777 for the difference. Does Landry gain anything here in the final turn? That's what I'm curious about. It's the same line, though, so most likely not. Loverik has such great acceleration on the exit there. But it will go down, surprisingly, half a second. Okay. At the, looking at the sectors, Landry gains in 1 and 3, but loses 2/10 in the middle sector. But that really should not be all that much. Hernandez, I thought Stapleton's there. No, but Hernandez is there. Could this be... Oh, and they're going to have to get Portis through. But if it's timed correctly, Hernandez could lose out quite a lot. Although there's a pretty sizable gap, so it might not be that much of a worry. And behind them is Loverink. So there's Clifford leaving the scene. There's Nelson in 18th position, number 9. He'll be getting blue flagged soon. And depending on who you are, if you're Loverink, you want to be at more of a straighter section of track. If you're Landry, you want to be a bit more twisty, so that way you can really capitalize, really gain on what Loverink loses. Let's see if that gap is any different. It's just under 6/10, and it stays under 6/10. 300 of an advantage given over to Landry, but he's got a lot more work to do. Lanham maybe feeling the pressure from Rasco. The lap times have been the same, but Rasco's a 10th quicker and completely bottles the exit. Actually, it's the entire corner. So 7:10. It was a lot closer before I checked in. I probably should have waited till after. Everybody's a little bit camera shy sometimes, it feels like. Loverig now under half a second between himself and Landry. The yellow flag. That's Passer. I don't know what happened, but if I had to take an educated guess, it's probably sausage curb at the kink, kicking the back end up. It didn't look like he had any damage, though. So he's able to keep on moving. Does have a good gap for Migliori, though, so he doesn't have to worry about that all too much. And now 4/10 for the gap currently. Is it less now? It is 4 thousandths less. From 444 to 440. Landry, a little bit of time, 8 minutes to go. And his laps are still quicker than Lovering. Sometimes it's under a 10th, other times it's over a 10th. This lap was one such where he gained a pretty good amount of time. While this is happening, Lovering has sort of stabilized the gap to Clifford. It's hovered around 5 seconds and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. Lanham Rasco still debating this spot. The 921 of Hasser has gone off and is in the pit. Don't know what happened. Probably just frustrated with himself. It's been a pretty questionable race for some. And Landry, in the meantime, has gotten around Lovering. Can't believe I missed that. But Lovering drops another position. Now he is in third. Portis there just entering the frame in the background. What does Portis' times look like? Not as quick as Lovering, so he's fine over there. But already a second between these two, so perhaps Landry could get closer. Depends, though, because he is a couple of tenths slower than Clifford. I mean, he's got 6 minutes to recover 6 seconds. If he can find a second a lap, he should be there in no time. Or 6 seconds a minute, rather. If it's 6 seconds a lap, he might, or a second a lap, he might be a little bit beyond the scope of what's left and left allotted to us for this race. But Landry has already gotten well and truly away from Lovering. It's all about just making sure things are all set. So we turn our attention, Rasco and Lanham for P8. 5 minutes and 40 seconds to go here in race number 2. The Simrigs Sprint Series at Laguna Seca. Lap times here have also been very similar, very close. Rasco with the advantage by a few hundredths. Well, this seems to be the name of the game. As Lanham clattering over the inside of the curb. Rasco is very close, right under the bumper. That's Lanham running wide. He may run wide for the next corner. Rasco, a bit of oversteer, has to correct, so that'll lose any sort of chance he had at going through. Trying to be as gentle as he can with the throttle. As that gap is 3 tenths right now. Looking to go even lower. But that is a task easier said than done. This Lanham really struggling now. He's having a lot of problems. Starting to get to him a little bit. We'll check in. Keogh and Portis with Fernandez behind. This gap is about a second, I think it is. Half a second, I can't read. And then Frizzo's way in the background, so this is Keogh doing what he can, especially to keep Fernandez behind. It's a little embarrassing when you get around a blue flag and then struggle to actually pull away. But Lanham with Rasco still in tow. Last time around in the same corner, we had some wide runnings, and that's just going to be the story for Rasco this time. And that is Pocket just ahead of him. Or no, sorry, not Pocket. That is Migliori. Migliori right now in 11th position. He will be getting out of the way for 1 and 2. Gap's just a pip under 4 tenths. This could be a case of a last lap lunge. Depends on where Clifford is. He's at the corkscrew right now. Very sizable gap. Still 6 seconds. So Landry has been very close. A 23.05 for Clifford. A 23.09 for the Canadian Landry. So it looks like Clifford may be set. He's just going to have to go around a couple more times. In fact, I think the next time he comes around, it'll be last lap. It should be last lap if he's running a 123. Waters getting out of the way, wants to make sure there's no repeat of the last time around. Doing better with the traffic. So this might be where we stay At least until Clifford gets the checkered flag. A lot of pressure on Lanham. It's all on him right now to keep this position. The number 8 car finishing in position number 8 would be quite nice. .310 still the gap. Rasco is looking for just any way through, and he may have found it as Lanham completely misjudges the corner, but that actually plays into his favor. Rasco spins it on the exit there, and that is going to be it. That's the attempt over. Any chance he had at going for 8th has spun away into the wind. Lanham's mistake has somehow caused Rasco to implode. And that'll be the race done with. Thankfully, oh, Lemaire's got huge damage there. It's moving very slow. Well, actually, I want to see if it's affecting the performance. I don't think it is. We'll hear what it sounds like on the front straight. We'll see if there's actually... No, it doesn't seem like it is. It might just be actually minor damage, so good for him. Hernandez leading with Hasser, but we are on the final lap. Clifford, rather, very comfortably ahead of everybody. Huge margin. Almost 7 seconds to Landry. We'll see if that is actually going to 7 seconds by the time we get to the checkered flag. Landry getting around Loverink. Portis in 4th. Keogh's 5th right now. Frizza getting through the back marker there of Hernandez, and another one just beyond that. Fernandez Wilson is in 7th, and Lanham happy to go with 8th. He didn't have to get physical. He just had to sort of do a little bit of lopsided driving, and Rasco tried to recover it. Was a little too on the gravel and a little bit too ambitious with the throttle, and that spun him out. Was able, of course, to stay well and truly ahead of Lemaire by a sizable amount, so he doesn't even have to worry about that. But ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Clifford, from losing pole position by 8 thousandths of a second to winning race number 2 by 6 seconds, almost 7. We'll see what it is. Landry, 7.6 seconds. He's on the podium, and Loverink's going to have to go for 3rd. 1.5 behind your second place driver. Portis will make it into the top 5, as will Keogh. He'll be happy with that. Frizza side to side, and probably a little bit of a headlight flashing there as well. He'll be 6th. Wilson will be 7th. Lanham just now going to be getting into the final corner. Ahead of him is Nelson. Nelson will be finishing 17th, but Larry Lanham, the number 8, in a pretty predictably good spot with 8th overall. Rasco, valiant effort, but unfortunately just going to falter at the finish line. He'll be 9th. Lemaire has already crossed the line for 10th. We wait for Migliori. What a race that McLaren has had. He is hurting quite significantly, but the number 11 will cross the line in 11th position. Gotta say, guys are doing pretty good at making sure your race numbers line up with your finishing numbers. Stapleton will be 12th. Then it's Fernandez, Hernandez, Hasser, Waters, Nelson, Pocket, and a couple others that we lost. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for tonight's festivities. We'll just wait for the game to maybe take a look at Hasser and Pocket, both of whom still stuck in the pit lane. Keogh barking it off, well, spinning it rather. We'll get back to the pit. Well, we should be moved forward towards the end of the session here. Waters was up there on the inside, now he's back. Nelson off in the gravel at the exit of at the entry of turn 1. Yeah, it is just Hasser and Pocket who haven't crossed the line. We'll see what the stats say about it. But everybody's leaving the server. They're kind of all set tonight. They've realized they probably have to go to bed or eat or do something. But once everything gets forward, we'll take a look at the final results, and I'll have a chance to get a little less stress on me to get the highlights out. Whoops. But good races overall, exciting one. 2 had a very fun start, a lot of quiet in the middle, and then everything kind of kicked off right at the end. And there it is. So let's take a look at the results. Race number 1, Loverink ahead of Clifford, half a second. A 20 kilo handicap compared to a 9. But still, Loverink came out on top. Then it was Landry, Wilson, and Portis, your top 5. Wilson actually having a kilo less, so good on him. For the Pro-Ams, Fernandez, Pocket, and Hasser. For the amateurs, Migliori, Stapleton, and Nelson. And then the silver drivers, it was Bandera in front of Frizza, Sanchez, Lanham, Waters, and Mercado. Race number 2 went a little bit differently. Clifford wins it. 7.6 seconds over Landry. Loverink having to just put the hand up and say, fine, I will take third. Portis back in 4th. Keogh was in 5th. Great drive from him. Then it was Fernandez, Hasser, and Pocket for your Pro-Am drivers. And then the amateurs, Migliori, Stapleton, Nelson. Silver final results for that. Frizza, Lanham, Waters, Sanchez, Mercado, and Bandera. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here tonight. Before we go, of course, a final shout out to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 17 of the Sprint Series. I'll just say it again, of course, Melbourne, Australia. If you live in Australia or New Zealand, you guys are covered. If you're outside of those, send them an email. They'd be happy to do some business with you. If you got some money that's burning a hole in your pocket, or maybe you got an anniversary, birthday, something coming up, whether it be for you or someone else, you want to upgrade the rig a little bit, hey, they've got a wide selection of plenty of sim racing gear. So do take a gander. Even if you're not looking for anything, just look and see what they got. They got some good stuff in there. And if you're supporting us via Patreon, 5% off is going to be the code awaiting you to use. So do take advantage of that. But thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring another season of the Sprint Series. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get out of here. We have not 1, not 2, but 3 weeks between now and race number 5 of the Sprint Series. Gonna be at the Red Bull Ring. That's going to be very interesting to see. Some drivers have been taking full advantage of the fact that there is a new track and getting in there, getting the laps rolled out as best they can. Other drivers, this is probably going to be the first time that they actually have had a run around on the Red Bull Ring. So we'll see who's the most prepared, and we're going to see just who can come out on top. And don't worry, I will have highlights and standings and all that good stuff next time around. But until then, as always, folks, on behalf of myself and everybody here at the OOR, we'd like to thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed your stay. Enjoy your break. And if you're going to be running in our endurance events coming up, best of luck to you guys. But of course, as always, folks, stay safe, stay beautiful, have a nice little break, and we'll see you next time.